Welcome everyone to VeloNut. I'm Jeff Whitfield. Thank you so much for joining us in what I hope will be the first of many video blog entries, or vlog as the cool kids like to say. So this is something that I hope will complement a lot of the writing that I'm doing on VeloNut, as well as even take it to new levels. Hopefully I will be able to do things like show you some instructional videos, some tips maybe, as well as maybe even start in doing some podcasting. So we shall see where this leads us. But in this particular entry, I'm going to be talking about two things. First, what is VeloNut? And then later, we're going to talk about Strava and some of the big changes that they made recently that's been making a lot of headlines. So let's talk about VeloNut. Well, first, let me preface this by saying that this site really got started because of Crohn's disease. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease in roughly 2007, and I've been kind of fighting it ever since, but started to get really a lot better, I guess you could say, roughly about a couple years back when I bought a bike about 5 years ago, and thinking that, you know, I got to the point where I felt like I needed to get some exercise, so I bought a Schwinn Network 7 Hybrid. I rode it for a little bit. It was this big, heavy steel behemoth thing. I rode it for a little bit, and then it kind of stayed in the garage for a couple years. Then I pulled it out, started riding it again, and it kind of stuck to the point where I felt like I kind of needed to go further with it. And so after that, I went to a local bike shop and I purchased a Marin Larkspur CS1 fitness hybrid. And I rode that one pretty religiously, actually. And my goal at that point, after getting it, within about maybe 2 or 3 months, was to be able to ride 20 miles. There was a Dallas bike ride that was happening. It was exactly a 20-mile ride. So I went ahead and scheduled to participate in that, and then set my goal, and I actually surpassed that goal before I even rode that ride. And so after that, it was okay, now I did this, now what's next? And so my goal at that point was to ride a metric century, roughly about 66 miles or so. And so I knew that I could not do it on that Larkspur, so I convinced the wife and let me go and get a road bike. So I walked in the same bike shop, and I saw this Marin Nicasio, this a blue, metallic flat blue Nicasio. I love the thing. It instantly just kind of felt right. And it turned out to be a really good purchase because this thing has, like, you know, road, you can see the red one behind me. Same bike, sort of. You can read about it on my blog about the adventures in this bike. But it has an enormous tire clearance. So I can throw, I've got like 6 different wheel sets in this thing. So I can throw, you know, whatever wheel set I want for road riding, gravel riding, comfort. Like the one back there, I've got my comfort wheels on, or just indoor cycling. So I've got like 4 different wheel sets I can choose from, depending on the type of riding I'm doing. But anyways, back to the story. So I got this bike, and within about maybe a week, I decided I wanted to change out the stem. And that turned out to be a bit of a disaster because at that time I didn't know how to fix a bike, but I was damn determined to figure it out. So I bought this adjustable stem, thinking, you know, hey, I can install this. This is not a big deal. It's a really simple thing. And when I put it on, where I made the mistake is at the top bolt. That's actually, you know, the compression bolt. Me not knowing what I'm doing, I just kept tightening the thing. And I kept tightening it, and I kept tightening it, and I kept tightening it to the point where, not knowing what I was doing, I actually stripped out the bolt. The bolt literally snapped off. And I was like, oh no, what am I gonna do now? So I took it back to the bike shop, hauled it up there, and said, you know, this thing's broke. I don't know what to do with it. How do I fix it? And I thought I really screwed something up. I really did. And the gentleman that was there was this older gentleman with a beard, and really, really nice guy. And he just took one look and goes, oh boy, yeah, that's really bad. And I was like, it can be fixed. And he goes, oh yeah, no problem. So he and I both got to working on this thing together and spent about maybe 15 minutes on it. And he managed to figure out a way to get that screw off the nut, the actual star nut inside, and looked at it, figured out that, you know, there was nothing wrong with the star nut, got me another bolt, another cap on top, and fixed it all up, and voila, all done. And so by the time it was all done, I looked straight at him and said, okay, so how much do I owe you? And he just kind of looked at me and said, nah, don't worry about it. And I was like, really? And he goes, yeah, you're one of us. I was like, one of us? He goes, yeah, a bike nut. And I was like, whoa. And the whole ride home, it really kind of occurred to me. I was really emotional about it, and he could see that. He could see that this was something that was actually really hitting me pretty hard, because at that point this bike really meant a lot to me. So to screw it up, you know, Crohn's disease and all that, it kind of hit me really hard. And actually when on the ride home, I got teared up, because what that guy did, what he said, and the way that he approached it, he could tell that this is something that I was passionate about. He could tell this is something I really cared about. And so he knew right then that, you know, that I was very passionate about this as much as he is about bicycles as well. In other words, I was definitely one of them. I was a bike nut. So within about a week or two, I knew that this was something that I needed to pursue, was learning how to fix my own bike, getting very zen with it, as it were, and then sharing this knowledge with other people. So I went and started looking at like bikenut.com, for instance, and that was taken. And then I started thinking about it, you know, there's another term for bike, that's Velo. You see it a lot, like VeloNews.com, for instance. And the thought occurred to me, what about VeloNut? So I looked it up, and sure enough, bam, it was actually available. And to my surprise. And so I created the logo, and thus VeloNut was born. Cool, huh? Now, I will say that as a cyclist, I am definitely in it for the fun, that's for sure. Not much of a racer, really. So I don't really race. In fact, I don't even wear typical cycling jerseys, lycra pants. I mean, I do wear bib shorts, but I typically wear, like, you know, your mountain bike style pants, or shorts actually, and just some Nike tees. And that's pretty much it. So the way I look at it is, like, you know, that the cycling community as a whole, I think a lot of it tends to kind of gear towards the pro. So it's like, what's good for the pro is good for you. Well, I don't want to cycle like a pro. I just want to cycle like a geek, you know what I mean? I just like to get out there and have some fun. Just do a little road riding, do some gravel riding, and just have some fun. All right, so let's talk about Strava. Now, if you have been living under a rock, or you're not using Strava, you may not have heard about some of the big changes that are happening over at Strava right now. And one of the biggest changes they made was that they just dropped this announcement, which basically encompassed a huge change in their business model. And it basically meant that they put up a paywall. They changed their subscription model where a lot of the features that were originally free are now under a paywall. And are available only to subscribers. And some of those things are like, for instance, segment leaderboards, for instance. You can still see the segment leaderboards, but you can't really get into the actual details and analysis of those segments. Other things like route editing and building are now under the paywall, whereas before I think you could do some basic routes. And pretty much all the previous Summit features are now under the paywall as well. In fact, that's kind of one of the things that the biggest changes they also made with this was that Summit itself, the whole, you know, used to be like into 3 different tiers, and now Summit is basically just gone. It's like nowhere to be seen. And instead, so now there's a single subscription, and that subscription basically is, they've changed it now where it's roughly about $8 a month, or if you pay for it yearly, it's $60 a year, which equates out to be about $5 a month. And for any new users that are under the free plan, you can sign up now and get 3 months free to try it out, all these new features, and see whether or not it's good for you. Existing users will actually stay under the current Summit prices for 3 months. So they already announced to me, I remember getting an email just recently about how I pay like $3 a month because I was only paying for one Summit feature. And now those features are basically going to keep going for 3 months, and I get everything for 3 months, which for $3 a month. And then at that point, I automatically kick over to the $8 a month. Now, this was actually a pretty big deal, and so to complement this, the founders created a What's New page. You can actually read about this on my blog entry about this. There's a lot of links, I mean, I literally saw probably the better part of maybe a dozen links to this thing. From virtually everybody was talking about it. So there's a lot of information about this and a lot of opinions about it too. The founders actually wrote a piece called "We're Betting on Our Athletes." You can read about that as well and see everything on their What's New page. But there's a lot of opinions about this, and one of the biggest changes they made, I think, that is probably, it's still probably the one thing that's probably the most contentious part of it, is that because of the paywalling and because of the feature access, that also impacted their API. And what was originally API features that were originally free are now no longer free, and that impacted, like, you know, hundreds, if not probably thousands, of Strava compatible apps that were utilizing that API. So a lot of third-party apps were effectively broken because of this. That was huge. And so I think it kind of pissed off a lot of people. So you hear a lot of opinions about it, about the need to paywall it, to need breaking a lot of the third-party API, because one of the biggest things is that many people look at Strava as being predominantly like a data company. Like, they capture all this data, and that the worst thing they can do is somehow make it where that data is not accessible. But at the end of the day, the way I look at it is that that's all fine and dandy, but, you know, Strava really did not set out to be a data collection and data provider, really, per se. They really kind of set out, I think, to be an actual application for users first, to be have a strong social media presence, but at the same time also, more importantly, to create an app that people that actually legitimately want to use. And I think that's one of the things that the founders are basically trying to say with this, is that, you know, whether you like it or not, you know, Strava is a company and they do want to make money. And the stupid part about it is that for the better part of, I think, probably 5 or 6 years, if not longer, this company, since it was founded, has not really been a profitable company. And so they've been having a really hard time trying to figure out how to be profitable. And so this move, really, if anything else, is really putting it where it's really truly users first. And to their point, I think that this is actually a smart move, because it allows them to focus in on the features. It allows them to focus in on how to make it a better app and to build features that actually people will want to use. Now, when it comes to Strava, from a designer's perspective, you kind of have to look at it as, you know, trying to keep that separation of what's free and what's not so free can get actually really, really, really hard. It's a really hard thing to do, I think, as a designer, to somehow or another take a feature and say, okay, this part's free and this part's not. And to try to separate that out, I think, is really, really hard thing to do. And I think that probably the founders, in many, many ways, if you read their post, that's kind of what they're saying. They're just saying, it's like, look, these features are complicated, they're hard to design well, and if we keep going on this road of constantly having to figure out what's free and what's not so free, then we're just going to continue to disappoint. So I think doubling down on subscriptions and doubling down on features that are specifically just for subscribers only, probably the smart choice to do, in my opinion. You know, here's the thing, is that, you know, I think it's actually a smart move, because at the end of the day, you really don't want to have applications that are, you know, give you a free lunch. And I think that's part of the problem, is that we as users of Strava have for so long been used to basically getting a free lunch. And then now that we're having to pay, it's like, well, do you really have a right to complain, per se? I don't think so. So to be able to pay for something, you actually have to have value. And I think that's what the founders are saying. They think and it's strange, because they strategically set it where they rolled out certain new features in order to up the ante, as it were, and to basically show that yes, that there is value to their subscriptions. And so now, rather than having to pay, you know, a la carte, as it were, you're basically just paying one Strava subscription and getting everything. So you're getting the benefit of anything and everything that they produce, and anything new that's going to be coming down the pipeline as well. And I think that's actually a really good thing. I think really it's all in their hands now. The ball is in their court, as it were. So if Strava is able to deliver and create something that's of tremendous value, then hey, I'm all for it, and I will gladly give them you know, my $8 a month, because honestly, I'm actually getting quite a bit of value out of it. what Strava enables me to do in a very simple way is measure my progress with my fitness and with my cycling. And I think that's about all anybody could ask for, you know, really. So, what do you think? And if you have ideas or you have opinions about this, hey, post some comments on YouTube, post some comments on this entry on the website, and share your ideas. In fact, let me close this off by telling you how you can help support this site. Number one, just like I said, post a comment. You know, voice your opinion. Let people know about what you think about what it is that you read, or even better, share it. So if you see something you like, if you see a video you like, or a podcast episode you like, or an article that you like, share it with others. Share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook. Let people know about it. Also, Patreon. You can also contribute to the website on Patreon by going to patreon.com/VeloNut. I would love your contributions to become a VeloNut, as it were. And one of the other ways you can actually contribute is that if you are a company or that would like to be a sponsor. I am definitely looking forward to getting sponsors for VeloNut. So get in touch with me, let me know. And hey, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you next time. Take care.